Kia ora mai tātou. Welcome to this long-term plan annual plan subcommittee meeting on the 20th of February. If you could please just take a note of the emergency procedures on the screen. If you do have your mobile phone with you, if you could just make sure it is switched to silent, that would be greatly appreciated. We'll move through to our opening karakia. Please feel free to join me. Whakatakata hau ki te uru, whakatakata hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei moriora. Moving through to item 2, which is apologies. We do have apologies from Councillor Gabriel Tupou, who won't be able to be here today, and we also do have Councillor Dyer, who is just joined us on Zoom actually, so great to see you, Councillor Dyer. And noting that also we have Joe Miller, our Chief Executive, joining us via Zoom today as well. So could I please put apologies forward for Councillor Tupou, seconded by Councillor Briggs. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Moving through to public comment. So we have a couple of different speakers, a group, and also one individual. So first up, we have Pam Hanna, Sylvia Allen, and Alex Vutratzis, Roger Blakely from the Save Petone Wharf Group, who are speaking to item 5A, which is the long-term plan consultation document. Now, given that the team have grouped themselves together, we have added their time together, so we're going to allow for a 10-minute presentation. So thank you. Over to you.
Kia ora koutou, Mayor and councillors. Ko Pam Hanna, aho.
Pam, if you could just make sure that microphone's
closer.
There
we have
go.
This problem.
Great,
yeah.
Just so everyone can hear.
So Sylvia, Roger, Alex and I have been working as Save Petone Wharf Group with others, and we have some important information to share with you this morning. I just need to work that. No. Why won't it move on? Oh, yeah, sorry, we're there. So, but firstly, we'd like to acknowledge the previous work council has done on looking at refurbishment of the wharf, and we agree that the options or the costings that seem to have got up to even 26.6 million are not prudent in the current economic climate, especially with some priorities like Three Waters. However, we believe council should not look at demolishing the wharf at a cost of 6 million and instead should consider a different cost-effective way to get the wharf open again. A technology called Pilemedic can provide a cost-effective way of restoring the whole wharf for safe public use for a maximum of $6 million with an expected life of over 50 years. Got it. Just takes time. Sorry, Sylvia.
You're welcome to use this. Oh, okay. Thank you. Kia ora, I'm Sylvia Allen. We've been finding out how important this wharf is to Hutt Valley and regional people, residents, as well as a little bit further afield. As you've probably noticed, we've been running a petition. There's very strong support to retain the wharf and reopen it to the public. We have approximately 3,500 petition signatures already, and that's without really going out and promoting it. It is iconic, and the comments that people have made include that they really appreciate its passive recreational opportunities, its social and industrial history, its setting in the relationship with the harbour, the beach, and Matu Island. And in the extra notes that we've given you, you'll see some of those comments, just a representative sample. People are angry that they can't go onto the wharf at the moment as well. So the wharf is heritage listed in both the district and the regional plan. The council's own heritage assessment, in fact there've been 2 heritage assessments done, reveals many exceptional and considerable heritage values, and Heritage New Zealand supports its retention. So if you want to demolish it, consents will be needed. They'll be publicly notified, they're fully discretionary, and they'll take a while. If it's repaired, only minor consents, if any, are needed. So it's a much more straightforward process. And just point out really that Council has ongoing responsibilities for heritage under the Resource Management Act, the Building Act, and under your own heritage policy, Tonga Tuka Iho. This is a relatively new policy. You've had it for 3 years. And to demolish it, we think would fly in the face of all those responsibilities. So I will now hand it on to Roger.
Kia ora mai tātou. I'm Roger Blakely. It's a pleasure to meet with you. I know quite a few of you from past hats we've all worn. And so I'm going to talk about the pile medic proposal. So this is a patented system, patented by an American firm called QuakeWrap, and it was launched in New Zealand by Rockbond last year. And as you probably know, Rockbond is in Petone in the mighty city of Hutt City. And so they're a local firm. Port Otago is currently using this pile medic technology at Port Chalmers. The US military have used it a lot to repair their marine structures across the globe. So it's a tried and proven system for an estimated $5 to $6 million, and they guarantee no more than $6 million. We've worked that through with them, and they guarantee that. It could be opened and used for safe pedestrian use. So then after that, the fixed piles, then long-term maintenance free, we'll explain in a minute. And after the upfront work, they prioritise the lower risk piles progressively that would need to be brought up to full standard over future years. So next slide, thanks. So this is a slide which illustrates the pile medic approach. The example there is a bridge structure which has got quite deep water under the pile. So it's a bit different to what would be the case of Petone Wharf, but the principles are the same. You know, there's not so much work for divers required at Petone Wharf as there would be for this wharf. So if you look at the diagram on the right, that's illustrating the system. And what they call a first jacket and a second jacket, that's a fibre reinforced polymer jacket, which is hard and weatherproof, and they wrap that around the pile. You can see the first jacket, they wrapped it right around the pile, and they finished that. What they're showing there is they're now adding a second jacket, and that they will wrap that around the pile, and they epoxy that to the other side of the pile in that second jacket. They leave a gap between the laminated wrap and the pile itself, and they will put down in that, they put down high tensile reinforcing bars to give extra strength, and also they pump in grout and polymers, and then the grout sets underwater to become a very sound and high strength solution. Right.
Cool, thank you. Just quickly, the wharf is in relatively good condition despite its age. So using the diagram from page 119 of the Petone Wharf Conservation Plan and our own discussions with Rockbond, the table below shows the number of piles that need maintenance in their location. So if you split the wharf into 3, piles 1 to 24 don't actually need any maintenance at the moment. They are in what's described as satisfactory to fair, 25 to 45 is a mix of satisfactory, fair and poor, but that includes 12 piles that do need work. So they do need that maintenance requirement. And the last third is 45 to 65, which is the head of the wharf. So there's 122 piles, of which 84 of these need maintenance to varying degrees, and 38 piles have been identified as surplus to the structure's integrity. So this is what is shown on page 119 of the conservation plan, and the bottom square, as you'll see in your slides, is the head where most of the work needs to happen. So Rock Bond are confident that they can guarantee the restoration of up to 96 piles, 12 on the approach and the 84 at the head for between 5 to 6 million. So funding the repair, we'd like to see you, instead of demolishing the wharf, actually utilise the 6 million to fund its refurbishment and then use a targeted approach to further maintenance. So this would be similar to what you have previously done with the 2021 long-term plan, where you had $300,000 per annum for maintenance. We'd like to see something similar roll over for the 2024 to 2034 LTP, and then you're able to use that $300,000 for targeted maintenance on those piles that are less of a priority, that need maintenance ongoing. So in conclusion, Pile-Medic technology encases each pile with a hard, seamless, weatherproof laminate drill jacket with a service life of 50 years. I think it's important to note that maintenance will last 50 years. It is a cost-effective approach. You know, we recommend you utilising that $6 million and then using an affordable long-term maintenance budget. And I think the most important thing, it actually signals to the public commitment by this council to maintain the wharf as a popular and beloved community amenity. And that's really shown through in previous surveys that Hutt City Council has done, the Petone Community Board has done previously, to when the wharf was open and just when it was closed as well. So there's thousands of people, not only with our petition, but also with previous surveys that show their love for the wharf. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Is there any questions? And then I'll ask our officials just to make a few comments as well. So Deputy Mayor Lewis, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, and thank you, team, for all the work you've done on this and all the research. If they did repair it, if this project was taken up by council, what is the time frame for the repair?
As we understand it, they can be spoken to, but we haven't said, can you start tomorrow? But we know they would be very keen. They see the 12 piles on the approach that need pretty urgent attention, and those on the head, that if they could do the whole of the head at once, that is good use of money and time, because that's the deeper part of the wharf. And there's also the piles there that are redundant. There's 38 piles that are not needed for structural strength. They would be removed at the same time. So they would see a concerted approach as quickly as possible. They've got the dive specialist company, the engineers and everything on board.
Okay, so just clarifying, they would start at the very end of the wharf because the head of the wharf
Well, you don't have to start any place in particular. With this polymer, it can be taken out in a big roll onto the wharf, measured and cut there, and then taken down into the water. They've got storage overnight at their place in Tapuni Street. There's no machinery as such. Everything would be done by divers and the people they use, and even where there's cross beams and things that need repair, that would be done from the deck with ladders down. So it's very different to how things have had to be done before. That's why it's so more cost effective.
Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, thank you. It is an iconic structure, and thank you for investigating alternatives. I appreciate that. I'm interested in how long ago or how long the Port Chalmers and US military piers have been in place in terms of, you know, the testing of this technology, and also whether the piers at Port Chalmers and the ones in the US are as in a bad condition as we're led to believe with Petone, with Teredo worm, you know, they look like cheese, Swiss cheese, some of those piles.
And that doesn't matter with this technology. And Mo is the American man who has the patent. And there's heaps of videos we can send you links to that the American Marines, they've been doing it for a long time. Australia's now using it. The patenting in New Zealand only happened last year. So Port Chalmers, we've seen the engineering drawings and everything. and Rock Bond are the only people who can use it here. So it's relatively new in New Zealand.
Thanks, Pam. So what's a long time?
It's 10 years, isn't it?
It was patented in 2015, I think.
Yeah.
May have been a little bit earlier than that, but it's been used big time since then because the American Army Corps of Engineers have got a lot of terrible wharves that need fixing up. So.
Councillor Shaw?
Thank you for coming in, and I think you're doing exactly what I thought you would do, get the wise heads together and the rest of the community behind you, so well done. And it's a very iconic structure, as you say. Simon took one of my questions, but one of my other ones is, does that 5 to 6 million have some contingency built into it? And who would cover liability if things don't quite go right?
The contingency is that they can adjust back if need be. So they feel they could do the whole 12 plus 86, is it? Within the 6 million. Once, if there's worse things happening on the deck than they can see at the moment, maybe there is room to cut the number on the deck that need doing immediately back a bit. We've talked about that with them. The liability, they are all well insured. We've checked that with them already.
That was Councillor Briggs, Councillor Brown, then Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Morgan.
Mr. Mayor, thank you all for coming in. I had a quick look at their website. It looks like it was developed in the 1980s, but also just curious around you're saying a minimum of 50 years.
Yeah.
And so if there's been 50 years of it since it's been in existence,
Yeah.
what's the guarantee around that? And are they, as a supplier, saying
What-
that anything less than 50 years, they will cover the cost of renewal or replacement?
You could ask them that directly. When they get those jackets up, they're actually then sealed top and bottom, and there's additional filling material put in then. So it's actually very waterproof, and there's no air gets in either. So it's pretty foolproof, very foolproof.
Thanks, Pam. And just some clarity around that 50-year number. How have they landed on that as a guarantee of that's the life expectancy extension if they
Do you
were
want to
to put
answer
the
that, Sylvia?
system in place?
Yeah, I can answer it. We asked them what the guarantee would be, and they basically said forever. And then we said, how about the Building Act's 50 years for building? And they said, absolutely, yes. So that's where that's come from. It's actually been originated in ours. They think they will last many generations.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you all for coming in and giving us an overview. And I know there's been a lot of work done, and with the 2040 group as well. I question why this hasn't come through the group earlier, because we've had a long process and long discussions about it. But it's really interesting to hear that. And it sounds like it's a repair. And for us, when we're making our council decisions, it's our asset management view is for when we're making the decisions, is for a full how long life it will be. So what is the cost? And that's looking at full refurbishment. So what would the cost be with this group as full refurbishment? Because that's the decisions that we need to make for our assets, is the lifetime of it.
So what they're proposing is that for a maximum of $6 million, they could do all of the piles that require immediate attention. And then progressively over subsequent years, if that sort of maintenance budget is available, they could then increase the number of piles, which currently are not rated as a risk. So what they're saying is there's an upfront investment which will get the wharf back up to full strength. And that's within the $6 million. They've guaranteed that.
So the decisions we're making has been about full refurbishment. So that's ensuring it's live. What is the cost with using this group for full refurbishment?
So what they're saying is this is full refurbishment to full safety standards now in the first phase, but then a progressive ongoing maintenance program targeted at some future piles may need to be done given this treatment as well, but it's much lower cost than the traditional piles.
Councillor Mitchell, then Councillor Morgan.
Thank you. You described this as a full refurbishment, but it reads like a partial repair. They're going to repair some of the piles for the 6 million. That part's really clear, the 6 million. The additional 3 million, you talk about ongoing maintenance. Has there been a cost provided for it? Will that cover the same repair of all the remaining piles, or is this just a figure that's been put in there for the next 10 years to carry things over?
So the $300,000 I think you're referring to, are you? That what Alex was saying was that in the past long-term plans, the council has had an annual maintenance budget of $300,000, and we're saying if this council continues that, that will enable ongoing maintenance, but also the full refurbishment is dealing with all of those piles that need immediate attention. But there will be further piles that could be done in the future years to build up as maybe codes require more strength.
They also say that they may be able to do more than the initial 86 within the 6 million. I mean, it's what you can. Their attitude is they will do as much as possible within any initial funding, but don't want to be too positive.
Can I just add another point? In addition to what has been said about the piles, a lot of the heritage fabric has actually been removed progressively over the past 30 years from the wharf, and it's sitting around in various places. So, you know, from a heritage viewpoint, we would see that there should be, ideally, but not necessarily, some restoration of heritage fabric, you know, putting back the gates and putting back the little blue shed that everyone loved. Now, whether that would be covered if there was any surplus left from the work on the piles. So that's just another. I know it's hard in terms of council's requirements, but it is a heritage item that does deserve some restoration.
Thank you. I mean, I think as a councillor, I'd be interested to know what the cost was of fixing all of the piles, not just 96 of them. And the maintenance budget that was in our last long-term plan was in there to maintain a wharf that hadn't been repaired, not a wharf that had been repaired. So I'd be much more interested to see how that money could be spread across actually further repair, a more complete repair. The other thing that I can't see in this proposal, the pile medic technology, by definition, is to fix the piles. There was a condition report done in 2022 that talked about a lot of other things that were wrong with this wharf that weren't piles. So I don't know, you kind of mentioned that maybe we can capture some of that within the $6 million, but it read like there was a whole lot more wrong with this wharf. The deck's not flat, as we can see in the pictures there. That's not going to be fixed by injecting those piles with plastic.
The deck not being flat has been like that for a long time, and it's actually sort of part of its heritage, really. People who want to use it are not worried about the deck. We're not talking about titivating the wharf up like Rona Bay. This is people want it open and able to be used to get out over that water, and that's what we're proposing. It doesn't actually matter. The deck is actually much better than could be expected. There's some cross beams. There's where the fire happened one Guy Fawkes night. So when the piles at the head that are redundant are removed, they hopefully will be able to use part of them where there's some other work needed and cross beams or whatever the technical names are. So they're thinking about all that as well.
So is that within their $6 million
yes, it
quote?
is.
That
The
they'll do
initial work
a whole lot
that
more
would
than
need
just
to be
fixing
done.
piles. Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing we need to see is a lot more detail about what is and isn't proposed. That report talks about, you know, a large proportion of edge beams needing replacement and widespread degradation to the outer stringers. I don't even know the wharf jargon, but it talked about a lot of things that aren't piles.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen a proposal from this company about how they will address any of that. It just sounds like they're looking at repairing some of the piles.
Yeah, the ones that need repairing. Some of them may never need repairing. They've already lasted over 100 years and they're still looking pretty good.
Okay, well, no, we do need to carry on because we've got Councillor Morgan and we've run well over time. So Councillor Morgan.
Kia ora, thank you for coming in. I guess I always go to an evidence-based practice, and looking at that certified lifetime, Roger, you mentioned they're tried and proven. I read the 2021 report of the wharf and looking at the state of where it is at, and then I went through the website to try to find any evidence of what their work has produced actually, and I'm struggling to find anything of evidence, and I wondered, have they actually produced anything to you at all about, we did this job here in 2000 and it looks like this in 2010, because that is my concern, that I don't see any evidence of best practice with that product. Thank you.
They're already a very experienced firm in marine structures and reinforcements, and now they're adding on this ability to use the rock bond technology. Yeah, so they're starting with the rock bond as from last year. I mean, sorry, the pile medic as from last year.
So can I just clarify, you haven't seen any actual evidence either?
They have started using this technology from last year. They have the guarantee from the American use, and they've seen the use in Australia.
Okay, we're going to finish up there. Can I first of all just say thank you for the incredibly constructive proposal that you have brought to the council, and I know that myself, the Deputy Mayor, the Chief Executive, and Andrea Blackshaw as well have met with you, and we have given a commitment to work with Rock Bond to look at what a proposal would potentially look like to come back to council. But I think you can tell probably from the questions from councillors that there is a lot of interrogation and understanding and ensuring that we are comparing apples with apples, and we have a figure that gives confidence around the lifetime of the asset, because the previous proposal was a full renewal and quite a different approach. But I'm just going to ask Andrea to make any further comment on that, but thank you again for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think we would all be really keen if there was a more cost-effective way to a solution for the wharf, and many officers and engineers have put in lots of time over many years before many of us were here to try and find them, but unfortunately not. Technology has moved on since then, and this product does look really interesting, and we're going to meet with Rock Bond to understand that. I think, as has been said, it's a matter of needing to take into account the lifetime cost of that asset and not just a repair. When council makes decisions on assets, it looks at the lifetime cost. So we need to know not just what it would cost in 1 year, we need to know what it will cost over the next 25 years. I think probably the important to say the $300,000 that's been in the long-term plan is not to repair, it's for any immediate fixes. If something was damaged in a wharf or a storm, that's what that money would help us make it safe again. It wasn't for ongoing repair. We wouldn't get any progress at all with $300,000 a year on that ongoing work. So I think it would probably be significantly more. And we have met with some other solution providers who thought they might have another idea, so we're really open to that, and we are meeting with Rock Bond today, in fact, this afternoon, and we can report back after that.
Thank you, really appreciate it. Okay, next up is Mike Fisher, Chair of the Petone Community Board, who is here to speak on matters pertaining to Petone.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning, councillors. You can probably guess some of the issues I want to talk about, and I'm not going to reiterate everything that the group before me has just said, that they've done so well. I'd just like really to report on a couple of points on feedback at the Petone Fair in particular. We, at our stand, obviously were seeing what people felt about the wharf as the first issue, and with literally one exception to me personally, everyone I spoke to and the majority of the board members spoke to could not understand spending money to demolish a wharf. They were interested in alternatives. They were very interested in the alternative which has been brought to you today by the group. And I can say that the board supports the work that the group is doing, so Petone Wharf, and you know that I've always personally supported it. And we would encourage, and it's interesting to hear about the meeting that's coming up and the potential for looking at an option. It's obviously very black and white in the draft LTP, which will galvanise people's views, which in a way is a good thing. You know, either demolish or an alternative. Personally, as you would have heard, I do not like the alternative, as I've said on many occasions. But the fact that there is a potential alternative restoration project, you know, certainly the board supports, and we would encourage officers and council to further follow that through. So that is good to know. The other main issues obviously are the library and the grandstand, and to be fair, the feedback at this early stage is mixed on those. Various people have, we don't care what happens to them, ranging through to, you know, some agreement with repair, restoration and looking at alternatives for the library. So it will be very interesting to gauge the full feedback when the plan goes out, but it's fair to say that there is mixed views on it. Certainly, and as I've said to you previously, with the library area, there's an awful amount of work that's been done, and it does feel like we're going around in circles a little bit. If there was savings to be made, then certainly proposals around that area for wayfinding have come up at workshops, just more simple signage, reasonable repairs, etc., looking at the space in the library and how it's used. And so now to range through back to the proposal for a multi-purpose facility and what that might look at, seems to be going full circle again into further consultation, but you know, there are mixed views in Petone on that, and it will be interesting to see what comes out in the draft plan about it in the full consultation. Just quickly on the grandstand, same views, very mixed. I think the majority, it would be fair to say, anecdotally of Petone residents I've spoken to or are aware of, would like to see the grandstand, I use the word preserved advisedly, protected in some way, repairs made rather than a complete demolition, if you like. Again, it'll be interesting to see the feedback. Taking off my community board chair's hat for a moment, and just very quickly on a personal note, the parking charges. I have to say, at the fair, every single person I spoke to was aghast at this idea. Because it's in the fine print, most weren't even aware of it and probably won't be till it goes out. And even then, I suspect the majority won't, because it's not a flagship item. But they were aghast at the proposal, particularly in view of the feedback from Wellington City as they've gone out with an LTP proposing extension to suburban areas and saying, look, there was literally a person on TV that said, I go to, or will go to the Hutt, and I'm sure he meant Petone, or Pororua to do my shopping if Wellington City extends paid parking. And I do fear for the vitality of the Petone commercial area with paid parking. It's good to see that the areas are defined now, because that was in doubt for a while. But just on a personal note, I'm strongly against it, and I suspect when more people know about it, the feedback could go that way as well. So yes, thank you for the opportunity this morning.
Thank you, Mike. And just to give you that reassurance that, of course, that's why we go through a consultation process, and we will certainly be highlighting that to get people's feedback, like a number of the other more significant changes. So any questions from members? Councillor Brown.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for coming in, and thank you for the research that you've been doing now with the community. All eyes are on the wharf, but there's also the library and the grandstand. As you heard before, assets is, we're trying to use the tool that we have of rates that is no longer fit for purpose now with water coming up. But another big issue is assets in the life of an asset, and the library is in Petone is one that really needs some work on it. So are you saying that people are open to options for the library to get that useful and have a long life, but also making it a vibrant part of Petone?
Well, it is a key area in Petone, and you know, harking back to the various discussions over the years, obviously some basic repairs were needed, and better reconfiguration of the space upstairs, you know, meeting facilities, etc., would be great. When we get to the next stage and looking further and saying something like, well, could there be apartments, or should we redesign the actual site plan and encroach in the car park, or move other facilities from around Petone to the library site? That's when you start people diverging in their views. So I think it's a question of whether it's some form of broad maintenance and some basic changes, or let's start with a clean slate and what could we put in that area. And that's where there's been a lot of talk already, and I think that's where you'll start getting the divergent views as to what some people might like there, and others would say, oh, no way, we just want, you know, a general hub facility, and I hate using that word hub, but something like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Really appreciate you taking the time. Okay, moving through now to conflict of interest declarations. Is there any conflicts to declare from members? No. Councillor Brown?
Board member of Urban Plus.
No problem. Councillor Shaw?
I'm not sure where this one sits, but I'm currently undergoing a subdivision, so just with development contributions.
Okay. I don't think that's an issue for today, but we can note that down, so that's good.
Thank you.
Councillor, any other councillors? No? Okay, moving through to item 5, which is recommendations to council. And first up is item A, which is the draft long-term plan and consultation document. This is on page 6 of your agenda. So Richard, welcome. Richard, of course, is our Head of Strategy and Policy, who is going to speak to the report and then answer any questions. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kia ora koutou. It's really good to be here and speaking to you with a draft long-term plan and the consultation document and survey ready for you to review. So the purpose of today is to update you on the LTP development and to agree the content for consultation and for the survey, so that we can take those two documents through to the design stage to be ready to go out for consultation. We also would like you to agree today the consultation period, which we're proposing runs from the 2nd of April to the 3rd of May, and this will meet our statutory obligations under the special consultative procedure. So that's one of the recommendations. Just for a little bit of context as to what's been happening, the team has been working really hard following decisions made at the end of last year to pull together a consultation document that is going to be accessible and engaging and really give people a sense of some of the really difficult decisions that are being made as part of this long-term plan. We're also pulling together the substantial and complex long-term plan document itself, and when we go out to consultation, this will be available on the council website. I'd like to thank you for the feedback that you've provided to us so far on both the consultation document and the long-term plan. You'll have received this week the feedback from us that we will be incorporating those suggestions and some of the answers to questions. We've also been undertaking a really detailed review of the longer draft long-term plan to ensure completeness and accuracy. This includes capturing the changes that are coming through from decisions that have been made recently, but also some of the decisions that are now coming out of central government as a result of the new government's work program, particularly in the water space and through some of the other areas. This is an ongoing process and will be working consistently through till March when we sign off the draft long-term plan. We have identified a few mistakes that needed changing, and in the email you got yesterday that responded to your feedback, there were a couple of those smaller things that we have identified and shared with you. We've also identified some updates that were needed to the fees and charges schedule. So these were sent out this morning, so you've got the context for those as well. In terms of next steps, we're going to continue working on making sure that the LTP is one that we can all be really proud of, especially given the hard work that has gone on to date. We will be sending the design consultation or the consultation document and the survey off for design. And then our next step is to prepare for the briefing to you on 13th of March. This is our opportunity to sit down with you and show you the material that we're preparing to support the in-person engagement that you will lead as part of the consultation process. So that's on the 13th of March. And then, of course, we'll be taking feedback from today and other work that we're doing, and that will be all coming together in the final version of the consultation document and survey that you'll receive on the at the meeting on the 27th of March, and then also the draft long-term plan, which will be in its near complete state. So happy to take any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions from members? Councillor Mitchell.
Just a little bit of feedback and questions on the consultation document. I've got some smaller things which I'm happy to email through. On page 25 of it, in the document, it kind of zeroes in on 4 kind of big things that we want to talk about, and it's a very small document and there's not a lot of room to talk about things in there. In the climate change section, when it talks about what we're doing about it, there's only room for 2 sentences. One of them is dedicated to stop bank work, which isn't even our council's project, it's a Greater Wellington project. I just wonder if we could include something more relevant to our long-term plan. One of the decisions we've made, which isn't a lot of attention drawn in here, is to produce a resilience fund. So if we have future events like the slips at Stokes Valley, that we can respond more efficiently to those. So I just wonder if that text could perhaps be changed to something more relevant to our long-term plan. And just a question on page 46, there's some tables in there of how much money is being spent and when. One of which is the Cycleway and Micromobility program, which only talks about the first 3 years, and I didn't know why that one only talked about the first 3 years, where the other ones seem to talk about 10 years. So the date, time period, and the amount are different to what's in the more substantive document on page 263. So yeah, just felt like that had drawn maybe not the right detail through into that table.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that. We'll certainly review the wording around the climate change. Really good suggestions, and the micromobility question. Can you just confirm that page, the second page number you referenced, was it 167?
263.
263. I wasn't even close.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, page 30, I only picked this up when I was sort of rereading this last night. I just wonder if we're being a wee bit disingenuous with our wording with that pop-out box in terms of changes that may be coming in how we charge for water. It seems to me that if we are going to put in meters, one of the things that we will be doing is trying to encourage people to use less water. So there, in my mind anyway, there will be changes to how we charge for water. And I just wonder whether we can't say something like changes to how water is charged for in future will be subject of another consultation process or something like that. It just seems like we're saying here that it's a possibility there'll be no changes to the way we currently charge for water, but I think there will be.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can take that away and just have a bit of a review and see if we can tighten that wording up a little bit.
Any other questions, comments, Councillor Stellinger?
It's been a while, I forgot which button to push. It's good to see you all again. Just a question, and I'm mainly referring just to our introductory summaries to the documents. They don't seem to refer to the major issue we have, and that's an inability to provide the funding necessary to really cope with the demands of our water infrastructure. In my mind, that's the biggest issue we have on our plate, but there's no real reference. There's some positive comments about we're dealing with it, we're prioritising it, but nowhere does it say we're not able to fund what is necessary. And that has been what we've been saying to central government and to our community in other forums. So it's just a point for consideration there, if I can leave that with you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. We'll take that way and look at the wording to try and make it reflect more of that sentiment.
And I know certainly in other parts of the document we've wanted to capture that. So yeah, very happy to take that away and have a look. Yep. Okay. Any other comments, questions, Councillor Deputy Mayor Lewis?
Thank you. Just one I've noticed, and I don't know if anyone else will be over it, but in the page 41, and it's a comment to the financial impacts, one is ticked, contributes to Petone 2040 plan, and the other one doesn't meet the community vision in Petone 2040 plan, where they're both so similar and there's nothing in the actual things we're presenting that identifies how it does and doesn't meet or not meet. So I just don't think it needs to be there at all. That's my personal take on it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you, Deputy Mayor Lewis. We'll review that wording. It is quite stark, so we'll see if we can put some context around that.
Councillor Dyer.
Kia ora, thank you. Mine's on page 41 under Petone Wharf. It has the financial impact there with the debt amount, but it doesn't have the rates impact like all the other options do. Just wondering if that's a mistake or if there's a particular reason of OPEX, CAPEX that this doesn't, but yeah, all the others have a breakdown of what the actual rates impact is.
Yep, that's intentional. So both these options are assumed to be fully debt funded. So there's no rates funding directly. So the previous annual plan had obviously the Petone Wharf and all those other big projects all debt funded, and so we've assumed with these revised options that it's all debt funded and there's no direct rates funding, for example, with the demolition costs, that we're not rates funding it but rather debt funding it.
And that's because we've already got that budget line in our current LTP.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions, comments, Councillor Brown?
Am I able to ask Jenny, is that because it's debt funded because it's CAPEX?
The demolition is not CAPEX, okay? So demolition would normally be OPEX, but in this case, through the decisions process earlier on, we've assumed that it'd be debt funded, the whole. And it's obviously been a tricky process working through all these various options as we've gone through the multiple versions. And so that's the assumption that we've used through the draft LTP. Yeah. Obviously, if we were to rates fund a $6 million cost right up front, that would be a huge increase in rates as well. So the thinking behind that is really to spread the cost of that.
Councillor Mitchell.
Just a suggestion off the back of that conversation and the questions that we have, and we know how this stuff works relatively well. As Councillor Dyer pointed out, it refers to less debt, but maybe it could state in there that this project will be debt funded and therefore there's no rates impact or something like that, just to make it clearer to our ratepayers who don't understand how this stuff works necessarily.
Yes, can do. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Stallinger.
Thanks. I just want to kind of refer back to the comments I made at our December meeting, and which related to the strength of our efforts to save money, which we did put a lot of good effort, but I got a real shock when I saw the full budget for the first time after our workshops were finished in the agenda papers for that meeting. And in there saw that our costs of our personnel costs were going up by about 18%, adding about $8-point-something million a year to our operating expenditure. So that created a conflict in my mind between us saying we've done everything we can to reduce costs and make savings, and we had done a lot of good work, but I note that those cost increases, even after allowing for a market-based movement, add more costs to our budget than we achieved in all the savings we deliberated upon. So I have a real dilemma in that I don't believe we have done as much as we should, given the financial crisis we really have with funding water infrastructure, and our position that we require funding support from central government to be able to deliver our services. I think there is a real disconnect between that level of increase that is incorporated in our budgets and the other issues we're facing. So I pondered whether to vote against the what's on the table here, but I've decided I will support it because it is, I think the documents have been well prepared, so thank you, and it's going out for consultation. But I just wanted to re-express my concerns that I think we need to do a lot more.
Any comment from Chief Executive just on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I would say to the meeting is that in the workshops we went through with you, we looked at what you would wish to prioritise and deprioritise in terms of staffing. We identified, where, for example, the majority of our staffing were. There were some things where you had no appetite to reduce services through reduced facilities, for example. So we've come forward with what's there on that basis. There has been a significant amount of savings. There isn't an area at all across the piece where members have said to us, we would like you to deprioritise that. So therefore, what's the budget that goes with that? So I'm confident that we've delivered what you asked us to deliver within the priorities as a body of governors that you've set us.
Okay. Any other comments, feedback? Councillor Brown?
I just wish to make a comment on that. We, at the time we were discussing that and we were talking about priorities, we had got so far down the list as to consider what services we would cut. And we were very clear that at the current status, with the complexity of the work that we're doing, we were at that very minimum, and the next step for us would be to consider cutting services. So that was in that priority setting time, and we weren't at this minute prepared to cut services for the public because they expected the minimum services that we provide as in libraries, pools and other services. So I remember that session very clearly, and we cut as far as we possibly could, in my view.
Yeah. I think the other important point to make is that when we look at particularly the rate increase for the coming year, most of that is driven by unavoidable costs when it comes to insurance, inflation, other fixed costs that really are really challenging for us to deal with, as any business or household is having to deal with at the moment as well. The other part of that is water infrastructure investment. And I think I referred to a few numbers, which I don't have in front of me at the moment, that if we were to get rid of people, do job cuts, the actual impact on reducing the rates would be relatively minor unless you were to make really severe cuts into this organisation. Then you would have a delivery problem around the significant capital program and pressures that we have as well. So we have had that conversation and discussion, and there will always be differing views, and that's healthy and good. And I know that will continue through this process, and there's no problem with that. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. We seem to be in a funny place. I'm not sure if we're in debate or giving feedback still, but my comment is kind of both. So I thought I'll just slide it in now. And it's really just to reiterate a point I made by email already, which is about the transparency about some of these decisions we've made, particularly with changes to service level or charges. We heard it in public comment about Petone parking charges, rather than those things just being buried in budget lines, that we do draw attention to those in the more substantive document, if not the consultation document, just to be transparent with our community so they can at least know about some of these decisions we've made without kind of finding out later when changes are made in their neighbourhoods that they start to notice. So just to reiterate that point, thank you.
And I think that this has been picked up, but if there is any other comment if officers want to make on the work they're doing with that. Joe, I think you've covered this.
Yes, you have a meeting at the end of March, and we will broadly summarise in that meeting as we finalise the document where savings have been particularly made, because we aren't reducing services significantly, albeit that we might be delivering them in some different ways, which we'll need to go through with staff. That's why it's not a big feature of the consultation document, but we will summarise them, not for consultation, but for information, so that people can see what we've done and why, before arriving at the levels of rates that we are proposing to the public.
Sorry, we are going to try and move forward because we are starting to get into a bit of debate. I don't want, we can debate this further once we're in that. But as that covers off your concern, Councillor Mitchell?
Yeah, well, my concern really is about communication to the public. So it's not about summarising it in a meeting to these members. Like we were there and made these decisions. It's about the comms and the documents themselves. So.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So one of the challenges that we have, so we're trying to adopt a good practice and good sector practice and putting the consultation document together. So just touching on that comparison to our 2021 long-term plan, we've significantly reduced the page count of the consultation document, something like 70 to 80 pages in 2021 to something around 50 this time. We acknowledge that we're simply not going to be able to cover all of the material in the consultation document. We don't want it to be highly technocratic or highly detailed. We want it to be engaging and give people a summarised overview of the issues and obviously linkages to further information when they require it. So if there are some things that, and we've agreed the main consultation items at the end of last year, those 4 items, if there are things that we'd like to see elevated, then more than happy to take that feedback on board. However, we're still trying to advise to keep things as constrained and tight as possible because we know the community appreciates the succinctness with which to view a consultation document that makes sense. If there is things that we can do to change order and priority, more than happy to take that on board, but we're going to have to make some calls to actually not include some content because we're simply not going to be able to include everything.
Okay, we can take that offline, but really fair points. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll continue through. So what we're going to do, thanks Richard, is just with Presidents of Business in accordance with Standing Order 10.4. I'd just like to accord precedence to items 5B, 5BA, 5BB, and this is in relation to 3 water investment decisions and information. So the first item, which we'll cover off, is item 5B, which is on page 391 of your agenda, and that is 3 Waters' further advice for the long-term plan. We've got Kevin Locke here, who's the Group Manager of Customer Operations from Wellington Water. So feel free to come up, Kevin, in case there's some questions for yourself. And of course, Bruce Hodgins, who will speak to the report. Thanks, Bruce. Do I need to move and second that? No.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is further advice that Wellington Water has provided to us in terms of our preferred investment options, both OPEX and CAPEX, and really just pointing out some of the risks around that preferred option that we have decided on. And I suppose there's 2 matters here that I just want to highlight. So the first matter is in regard to the OPEX funding and the current OPEX funding. We made a decision in October that we would take on the first year, which was quite a large increase, but we wouldn't look at increasing over future years. Now, what Wellington Water has pointed out to us is that this does not take into account the additional costs, operating costs of putting in water meters. So there certainly will be additional costs that we'll need to include within the 10-year plan if we are looking at having water meters, and those costs ramp up over a few years to get to 2 million, approximately 2 million a year. In terms of that paragraph 6, I just want to point out a small error. So in that paragraph, we talk about in 2 million from 28-29, that should be from 27-28. The other issue that I just wanted to highlight is in terms of paragraph 16, and that is the proposed level of investment in renewals, particularly in regards to our pipe network. So the focus rightly has been on, for this 10-year plan, on the essential parts of the network. So the pumping stations, the Seaview, wastewater treatment plant, reservoirs. So those essential items have come first before we can actually start addressing some of these issues with the network. And so paragraph 16 highlights that there is quite a deficit that exists and will remain with this investment option for the first 10 years. And specifically, the numbers that I have been given this morning were around 226 kilometres exist right now. So that's the backlog of and you know, we're doing around 15 at the moment, a bit less than that this year actually. And in 10 years' time, that number will be 240. So it'll increase slightly. So that takes into account over that 10-year period, the pipes that are coming to the end of their life, less the number that we have attempted to clear with the investment that we've putting in. So they're the two things that I just wanted to highlight.
Thanks, Bruce. Any questions? Councillor Mitchell?
Just with that last point, Bruce, that slipping in backlog, I think, you know, it would be good if we were at least able to hold our ground on the backlog, or that sounds ridiculous just to say that out loud. But is there, do we know what the additional cost would be to do that, to avoid the backlog getting any greater over the next 10 years?
To hold it at around 226 kilometres, so there's the difference between those two numbers isn't that large, it's 14. The average that we've been using is around $2 million a kilometre, so around 30 million maybe.
Any other questions? Councillor Edwards?
Just a very quick one. Bruce, I see that one of the reasons for the gap between what Wellington Water say we should be spending and what we are spending is 51 million for Hutt CBD stormwater renewals. I thought CBD stormwater was a key target for the IIF funding.
Yeah, this is investment that is additional to that. So this is investment that is looking wider than what the IIF is looking at. So it sits outside of that funding.
Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. Can you remind me, Bruce, I don't think I've heard of it ever mentioned, if there's work required, because I see in paragraph 16, with local wastewater, excluding the bulk water network. Is our bulk water network in tip-top condition?
And that's what I was referring to before in terms of where the priorities are, and certainly that is a priority. So as far as I'm aware, all of the work that needs to be done over the next 10 years on that network is included in the budget, apart from the monies that are required for the outfall. So at this stage, the monies that are sitting in the plan really are just for the planning work that needs to happen, not the physical work. So as you know, that's a significant sum of money, something in the order of $500 million upwards.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll move through to the recommendations. We do have two options here, which is to make a decision on, which I have put forward as a... Oh. No, sorry about that. So we've got the recommendations in front of us. My chair recommendation is to go with option B, which is to build in the recommended OPEX costs associated with with operating and maintaining water meters. I feel as if, as going out with in consultation, that there is going to be a cost associated to this. While that may be sharpened up through the business case process, it feels more transparent to build that into the budget and consult with people on, rather than not have it and then add it in later on. So that's my thoughts. So I'll move the recommendations with 3 being option B. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Edwards, any discussion? Councillor Stallinger?
Apologies, just a question on that. I'd forgotten I had this question. Under the financial considerations, it talks about rates increase. I just wasn't quite clear. Is that the rates are increased and they stay at that increased level, or it's an increase for a period and then it drops back to where it otherwise would have been?
So this is on page 394. So I understand the funding requirements for this is ongoing. So they sort of ramp up over a period of time and then it's an ongoing cost. So the rates increase, we obviously need to cover that OPEX increase, and we'll be just adding in each year the extra amount of funding that's required until it gets to that $2 million number, and then there won't be further increases.
Yeah, I think there may be a little bit of confusion with the other paper refers to an increase and then a drop down, so which we can cover off next. Yep. No, that's okay. That's fine. I know these came in a little bit later. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Thank you. Moving through to item 5BA, which is investment required to eliminate water leak backlog. And this is on page 3 of your supplementary agenda. Bruce, if you'd like to make any comments on this, and then we'll open up for questions again.
Just one comment, that if council agrees to proceed and include this in the budget, we will be looking to get an implementation plan from Wellington Water to sort of cover off resourcing, methodology, reporting, and we would expect to see the resources around this ring-fenced so that we have an assurance that this work is going to be completed in the timeframes that we're talking about. So yeah, that's the only comment that I make at the moment.
Thank you, Bruce. Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora. Just wondering what auditing process we'll have in place to ensure that the leaks that we fund to repair through this actually stay fixed, because as you will have noticed through the community, there is some queries as to whether or not the money is being spent efficiently, and just what we have in place to ensure that is happening.
If we go down this path of repairing leaks, we know that we've got an issue with, particularly with asbestos cement pipes, that you repair them in one point and they will find possibly the next weakest point. And there's quite a bit of this in your neck of the woods on the Western Hills. So yes, you can expect that that will occur. So this will mean that there'll be a different methodology, I believe, in terms of teams being in particular areas, trying to clear a number of leaks at one time, and then move around the city doing that, coming back. But it's not an easy situation in terms of having to deal with that. So we'll still have a team or teams that will go out and deal with those emergencies, the P1s and P2s, but looking probably at having teams that will look at a more area-based approach in addressing the leaks.
Councillor Mitchell.
Here we go. A suggestion in, I think it's at the end of the paper, that this could be spread over 2 years. If the funding was spread over the 2 years, would essentially the catching up of backlog take place over those same 2 years? There's about, I think, by my calculation, about 560 odd leaks in the backlog currently. So would that get down by half by the end of this year, and then?
Not that I understand, but Jenny might be able to add something to that.
So the proposal here is that the full funding of $2.8 million, this one-off cost, would all be incurred basically from July this year until December. So there'd be a sort of go hard, go fix them ahead of the next summer, so we'd spend all the money. But in terms of the rates collection process, we'd basically spread it over 2 years. So we'd have, we know that we need about a 1.9% rates increase to cover the full amount. So instead of putting it all into the first year, 24-25, it would be spread over 2 years. So 1% in the first year, and then the balance, once we've increased the rates there, that would help fund the balance that we need for the next year. And then we'd reduce the rates funding requirement in the third year when we don't need that funding anymore.
Sorry, the work's all been done in the first financial year, but we're not going to pay for it in the first financial year.
We're not going to pay for it from rates. We'd have to basically draw down debt for the balance of it. So we'll have some extra interest costs incurred on those borrowings until we've fully collected all the rates funding.
Thank you.
And Jenny, do you just want to explain how it would reverse out in year 3? So what that would look like, just so everyone understands?
Yeah, so where we collected an extra $2.8 million of rates funding plus interest cost over those first 2 years, then because it's a one-off cost, we wouldn't need that money from year 3 onwards. So then the rates funding requirement would be dropped down to reverse that out.
And is there an amount to that third year reversal?
Not sure exactly what the rates requirement would be, but it'd be sort of equivalent, adjusted for inflation, all that kind of stuff, and interest costs of, the equivalent of the 1.9% rates increase. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, if there's not, we'll go through the recommendations. So I'll just read through the recommendations which I've put forward from this. So for me, I suppose this was one particular item which I've sought advice from Wellington Water and through Bruce around what it would take to clear the backlog that we currently have out there in water leaks in Lower Hutt. We know we currently have 839 leaks across the city, and within our current funding envelope and ability on the ground, we just simply will not be able to clear it without additional resource and focus. So for me, this is an additional step we need to take to be able to mitigate the short-term risk of an acute water shortage, particularly next summer. I've heard loud and clear from our community that we need to be doing as much as possible to get on top of the leaks issue. I think there is an understanding that that is not the long-term solution. The long-term solution is renewals and looking at other measures, which we do also build into this long-term plan. So I'll just read through the recommendations. So receives and notes the information contained in the report, agrees to an investment of $2.8 million to clear the current backlog of leaks in Lower Hutt by the end of 2024. This would be to a level at which Wellington Water is able to respond within the 20-day target for lower level leaks set out in their key performance indicators. 3, agrees to include in the draft long-term plan an additional $2.8 million in OPEX. This will be funded through an additional 1% in rates for the 24-25 financial year and a 0.9% increase in the 25-26 financial year, noting there would be an offsetting reduction of funding in 26-27. 4, asks that in addition to its current resourcing and structure, Wellington Water explores using plumbing professionals from within the region to meet this target. And 5, notes that this budget and approach are designed to mitigate the risk of an acute shortage next summer and more generally in the short term. This is in addition to the medium and long-term solutions proposed in Council's draft long-term plan of a continued uplift in renewals of pipe and installation of water meters. So I've moved that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stallinger. Any discussion? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, we've all heard the same thing you've heard in recent months about getting on with fixing the leaks, and I think this is a really clear indication to our residents that we are focused on that. I have a couple of things in mind, one of which is just making sure the expectations of our community are clear and correct, that there will still be leaks around our city next summer. There will just be, by my calculation, about 2/3 less than there were this summer. The other part of it, and I think it was in the last point up there, was about how also this makes a contribution to reducing the likelihood of water shortages next summer and in future summers. We do share our water source with other councils in the region through Wellington Water, so I hope that we can kind of share this approach with them. It feels a bit late in our long-term plan process, unfortunately, this time around, but at least share the approach with them that we are focused on this as a way of addressing that water shortage threat in the future summers, and hopefully some of them may join us as well.
Councillor Brown, and then Councillor Shaw.
Yes, so I've been on the street of Wainuiamata. We've got Maru Street, so have been knocking on doors as well as talking to people, and people are asking us, why are we asking them to conserve water when we've got leaks right beside us, and people have pointed out the leaks to me. And for us, this is a contributory way that we can add to an issue that is growing as big as it's getting mountainous. So people are starting to feel, including ourselves, overwhelmed by this issue. This is a really practical issue, practical solution that we can contribute in a way that they can visibly see. It's not going to clear everything, but it is going to get us back to a level that is more controllable. And if we don't actively do the bigger decisions as well as the grassroots practical options as well, we're going to have a constant issue with asking people to conserve water.
Councillor Shaw.
Certainly support my colleagues' comments, and I think, you know, we're all acutely aware that every time we open the paper there's a comment about water shortage, and I think this is a pragmatic and sensible solution to try and help resolve that. I'm also really happy to see that we're going to explore the use of local plumbing professionals. I think that'd be really good for our community, and it'd be good for them to see us being really doing something, trying to do something about the current situation.
Thank you. Just a final comment, really. My view is that this is an approach where we are cracking down on leaks in Lower Hutt. We are doing everything we possibly can with the advice that we've received to get in a position by the end of the year where we are able to operate at a BAU type arrangement. And as Councillor Mitchell said, there will still be leaks. So we need to be really upfront with people. What it will mean is that Wellington Water will be able to respond to those lower level leaks within the 20 working day time frame, which is what people would be more accustomed to in years previous before this backlog grew and it became a real challenge. So I trust that those in the press will help us communicate the difference there as well. But it is showing, I think, that we are taking this issue really seriously. What I will be doing also is sending these recommendations through to each of the metropolitan councils to make them aware of what we are doing, because as was mentioned, the water source is one for the entire region, and in my view, we need to all play our part to be able to really make a dent into the risk of an acute water shortage next summer, along with the medium and long-term solutions, which is incredibly important. So it's been moved in second. All those in favour say aye. Those against, no. I declare that carried. Thank you. Moving through to 5BB, which is further information on the rating impact for Three Waters capital investment. And this is on page 5 of the supplementary agenda. Deepu, I believe you're... yep, you're just going to answer any questions. It really is more for noting. So is there any questions from members on this information? No. I think it's pretty straightforward. So I'll move the recommendations that Council receives and notes the updated information on the rates impact of the CAPEX options proposed to be consulted on in the draft long-term plan process. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mitchell. All those in favour say aye. Those against, no. Declare that carried. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Cheers. Okay, moving through to back to the consultation document and item 5B. No, sorry, apologies. Hold on. Yes, 5A. and that is again on page 6 of the main agenda as well. So we're back now to the recommendations which are before us, and do we want to pop them up, Kate? Yes. So what we're going to do, in addition to the recommendations that you have in front of you, is some additional mayoral recommendations, which I'd like to table. So I'll focus primarily on them, which is 9 through to 11. So these additional recommendations are a reflection on the significance of our capital delivery program in water and transport, but also thinking about particularly Riverlink over the coming years and the significant disruption that will cause from the work that will need to happen around the CBD and generally across the board. So it's looking at other utility providers as well to ensure that we're able to get take an approach which is least disruptive as possible for our communities, is able to streamline and save us money as well, and get better outcomes. So they are 9 notes that the Council's draft long-term plan has the largest capital delivery program in its history, primarily focused on water infrastructure and transport, I believe making up 83% of the budget. Recommendation 10 asks officers to investigate any partnership opportunities that will streamline costs and enhance the delivery of this capital program, as well as support the work of the private sector and utility companies. 11 asks officers to embed a dig once approach within Council's own program of work and any utility works across the city. So those are additional recommendations. With the permission of the room, if we're happy to just build that into the full set. No one's got any questions on them. It's more of a direction to staff. There's no budget attachment to this at this stage, but that may be the case a little bit further down the track as the team does work. Okay, so we've got recommendations 1 through to 11 now, and we will just be changing recommendation 6, which is notes the feedback and direction provided to officers. And just wanted to particularly point out that item 8 delegates the power of the long-term plan working group to progress the consultation document and make content decisions ahead of final recommendations for Council's consideration. So obviously we'll work away and chip away at any of the minor edits and recommendations that have been given, and look to, of course, on anything slightly more significant, email and engage with the wider council. But I think we're in a pretty good space on that front. So I'll move it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. Any discussion? Councillor Stellinger.
Thank you. I probably jumped the gun a little bit with my comments before, so I won't repeat those, but I just do note all the responses that followed my comment about the 18% increase in personnel costs all implied that if we didn't increase personnel costs by 18%, we'd have staff cuts. I really challenge that view. I haven't been convinced that we need to expend 18% more just to retain current staff levels with the few minor increases in staffing that we have approved directly ourselves. So, I do remain of that view, as I expressed before. I would just note that if we trimmed that increase to 11%, which is still very substantial and would still be very hard to justify to our residents and community, the difference, the savings would be sufficient to fully fund the build-up and the deficit in our renewals of water infrastructure. So rather than having the backlog growing under our watch, we could at least hold the line. I recognise one is an operating expense and one is capital, but those reductions in our 18% increase would generate the cash to fund the remediation of that extra 15 kilometres per year. So I won't say any more. I will be voting in support of these resolutions to go out to consultation, but those are the views I'll hold going through to the final debate in a few months' time.
No, thank you. as you noted yourself, you are comparing CapEx and OpEx there, which is quite, it does tell a little bit of a different story, but I mean, that's fine. We can carry on. Is there any other comments? Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just noting that it has been a long process up to this point. It's been good working with you as colleagues, working through the priorities, and as Councillor Brown noted, looking at a real detailed level of what could be cut back and where our kind of pinch point is of what's going to be unacceptable to our community. Noting at this point in time, as in previous years, it's been really challenging financially for many in our community. And I take on officers' points that we need to make sure that the consultation document is accessible, and we're going to get a broad cross-section of our community engaging with the document. So it's how do we get it so it's not encompassing to those people that have little amount of time during their day to participate, and that we can actually capture all of the views. And noting that also in previous years, even if there hasn't been a question around a particular budget line, people still pick it up and they put it in the general comment section. And I think for me, that's where a lot of the gold comes. It's not the specific items that we're prioritising, but the items that our community prioritises and asks us to consider as part of our final deliberations. So I look forward to the feedback, and I look forward to our deliberations in the coming months.
Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Okay, slide around. I just want to thank the public comment that came in, and for our officers for being open to the work they presented today and going forward, you know, on Petone Wharf to look at different ways to do things. And just to comment back to, and if we go for full refurbishment of heritage structures, we will never ever be able to afford them as a city, because heritage is something you have to maintain. And just, you know, with any work program, any building, if we own our own buildings, we maintain them, and that's something I think our council should look at doing with all our good structures. And if we can do it with different technology, I think it's great. And thank you to the CE for being open to researching all these new things that are coming forward. So a great consultation document to go out, and I hope that the public get behind everything and get involved in what we're investing for the future of our city, because there is a lot of investment going in. Thank you.
Any other comment? No? Okay. Just to finally say, to reiterate the comments that actually have gone already, thank you so much for the constructive process to get to this point. I would say that this has been, I've repeated this many times, one of the most challenging long-term plans in its preparation to this point. And I suspect it will continue to be when we go out and engage our community and make some final difficult decisions. And I just wanted to say thank you for the collegiality, professionalism, and respect that every single person has shown each other and shown our officials in navigating these issues. So that holds us incredibly good stead to work through this and listen to our community and come out with a plan that not everyone will be happy with, but one that has genuinely and thoroughly looked at all of the issues and considered them deeply. So thank you so much. And also just a message to our community. I know we've got some members here who will be watching closely through the consultation process. The more feedback we get, the better. We will be doing everything we can to get the message out there, to be asking what people think. I'm particularly interested to see what people say on the question around our water investment. You know, we are being incredibly upfront that $1.5 billion is a significant increase from the last LTP. That's still $1 billion less than what Wellington Water have recommended that they could deliver. But we know that if we built that into our budget, we would be looking at astronomical rate rises for most of this long-term plan. And that's what comes back to the challenge of reform and change that we desperately need. But I will be really interested to see what our community have to say when considering that and considering it alongside the other important work that the council does. The one final thing I would say is that, you know, you've probably all heard quite a bit of feedback around the traps of just focus on water and don't do anything else at the moment. And we all know that that is a real challenge for us to grapple with because of the important work that council does across the spectrum. And I want to share one story, and Councillor Mitchell was there with me, where we had one resident who spoke incredibly well about advocating for that exact position. Cut the nice to haves. You just need to focus on water. It's really, really important. As we got talking, we sort of teased out a little bit further of what he did, and he talked about working on aluminium joinery for Urban Plus to ensure that they reach their healthy home standards, I think Green Star Standard 4, and said, oh, the work you do in that space is so important, make sure you continue doing that. And I put to him that may be considered a nice to have by your fellow residents. So just, I suppose, the challenge I put to our community is to give us examples and give us what you think we shouldn't be doing. It is really easy to say, oh, just cut the nice to haves. Give us examples, and that makes us, puts us in a position to make more informed decisions and consideration, because it's certainly not as easy as people may think. So I'm really looking forward to that feedback through this process. And thanks again, everyone. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. I declare that carried. Okay, I'll tell you what, we'll have a quick 5-minute break. We've hit 10:30, just so if anyone wants to escape as well. But so we'll come back at 10:35. Thanks. Thank you, everyone. We'll get back into things and we'll try and move through as quickly as we can for Councillor Dyer's sake. Good. I'm very impressed, very impressed. So item C, which is the approval of draft development and financial contributions policy for consultation, page 410. Deepu. If you'd like to make some comments and then open up for questions.
Kia ora. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in December, we brought through a paper basically with all the updated development contribution fees and charges. As a result, off the back of those decisions, we've been working with the growth planning teams at Wellington Water around sort of the growth assumptions in the project listings that are included. So through the review process, we've been refining the projections as well as the cost impacts. And this paper is basically a summary of where we've got to with all those changes, and we're still working with them through the remainder of the list. It's a huge program of work, and there's a lot of work that goes into sort of verifying the assumptions around the growth. As a result of that, there's slight increases in most of the charges in the catchments and then a reduction in the Wainamata catchment. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay. Great. So we can move straight through to the recommendations, which is 1 through to 4 on page 410. Do I have a I'll move it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Brown, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Great. Moving through to item D, which is the rates remission and rates postponement policy. So there has been a double up in the appendix, which Alicia will cover off. But any other comments you'd like to make and open up for questions?
Morning, everyone. Sorry about the double up with the rates remission policy attachment. That should have been the rates remission policy as one in the rates postponement policy as Appendix 3. And the team's, I think, printing a copy of the rates postponement policy at the moment. Now, there are no changes being proposed to that policy, so it is as has been previously approved by Council, but in order to have the rates postponement policy be consulted on as part of the draft long-term plan, we're presenting it for your approval today. The rates remission policy has been changed following the review and the decisions made in June and in August, and the policy is a little bit cut down from what it was before, but the main change is that it includes the proposed new rates remission for low-income ratepayers, and the conditions and criteria are attached, I think, is the last part of the proposed new policy. So if they're happy to take any questions.
Okay, just to see if we can save some trees. Everyone's comfortable with the rates postponement policy. You have already seen it, and it's not changed. So I don't think we need to. No, everyone's comfortable with that. Okay. Sorry, just your microphone, Alicia. Thanks. Okay, any other questions? So if there is someone at a printer, we can tell them to hit cancel. Any other questions from members? No? Okay, so we'll move through to the recommendations, which is 1 through to 3 on page 476. I'll move it. Do I have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Salinger, question?
Councillors will remember I voted against one of the rates remission policies. So I appreciate if you could take item 2 separately, and I'll vote against that. I won't repeat my rationale because I've expressed them at our meetings before.
Yep, no problem. So I'll move recommendations 1 and 3 with the exception, so leaving out 2, seconded by Councillor Briggs. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Item 2, which is the approval of the draft rates remission policy. It's attached as Appendix 2. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Briggs. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? No. I declare that carried. Okay, moving through now to... Okay, moving through to item E, which is the Three Waters Capital Works Program Review. And this is on page 513 of the agenda. So I believe we've got Gary as well. Gary Cullen, welcome, who is the Head of Major Projects at Wellington Water, who is here to answer any questions that may come up, and also, of course, Bruce, who will speak to the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report pulls together changes to the Capital Works program for the current year for Three Waters. I just point out that when Wellington Water pulls together the program for us, it's done probably a year in advance, and so things are not static. Things are moving all the time, and so there have been some changes. There's been some projects that have been brought forward, such as the Point Howard water main renewals, and other things that have not been taken account of. So this report just gives you what those changes are and seeks approval for those that you can approve. Already the Chief Executive has approved the bringing forward of some works in the program, and those are for some galvanised iron renewals, Hare Street and the Point Howard. The one thing I was just going to mention is the pressure management work. This piece of work is not insignificant, and it's been brought in the program because it has a favourable effect on water use. That's its primary reason for bringing it into the program. So it has three factors, I suppose, that help that. First of all, it reduces the volume of water that is used. And therefore it reduces the number of pipe bursts that we have. So if we can reduce that level of pressure down in the system, we will have less leaks, we'll have less water being used, and it extends the life of the pipes. So it's a fairly significant sort of piece of work that Wellington Water has brought into the program, and it's looking to do this mostly in Wainuiomata, but also Stokes Valley, Eastbourne and Manor Park. So if there's any other questions.
I'll go to the left first, Councillor Edwards, then we'll come around.
Just wondering, Bruce, on that last one, whether there are any ramifications for firefighting if you reduce pressure?
The reduction is to a minimum that is the standard minimum, which is 25 metres of pressure. So that complies.
Councillor Brown.
Are people going to feel any physical reduction to pressure in their households? And why did you choose those two suburbs first?
I can't answer the second question, but in terms of the work that Wellington Water is doing, it is looking further afield at other areas, but these were identified as being ones that could get a return, I think, in terms of the investment that is being made. It would reduce the number of leaks, it would reduce the amount of water. So I imagine it's based on that. And will people notice a drop in pressure? I don't believe they will.
Kia ora. Is the pressure management an ongoing thing, or is it just a one-off? I'm just thinking, as we repair the leaks, particularly with the program of works coming up over the next year, there's a potential that the pressure will actually increase in the system, and therefore I'm thinking it needs to be monitored for over a long term.
Yes, this is just the first year in the program. So what we have in the current LTP, draft LTP, is further funding to look at installing some of these devices in other areas.
It's ongoing practice.
Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I think you probably covered my question, which was whether this is something where you reduce the pressure and leave it there, or is this a live tool that we can draw on in times of water shortage, for example?
We have areas where we have too much pressure, more pressure than we need for the supply, and that just adds to the risk for when you get leaks. So it's part of that good practice that you should have in your system, and that we should be improving on and modulating over time. Yeah.
And I just had a question. You might have to excuse my ignorance about the Totara Park wastewater asset being a joint venture asset. I understand why Barber Grove is a joint venture asset down the bottom of the valley here, but why? How much of the network is joint venture across the whole valley?
So the joint venture, it goes back to the Hutt Valley Drainage Board Act, and so it's the network that comes from the main pipe network that comes all the way through Upper Hutt and down. So you may recall we funded work that was done on a main up in Upper Hutt in the street where Packensovers, I can't remember. Anyway, a few years ago. So this is part of that network. Yes, it seems a bit strange that, but it's all part of that that act and agreement that was set in place many years ago.
And just to clarify, is a wastewater pipe or a water? It says water main some places and wastewater in other places, I think.
It's a wastewater. It's only wastewater.
Okay, Councillor Briggs.
Thanks, gents. If we are to approve the increased budget, is it deliverable with the capacity that's currently there within Wellington Water to actually get on and get the work done? Or what's the current pressure with your other councils in the region as well for deliverability?
Yes, it's deliverable. In fact, Wellington Water has put forward a couple of other proposals that are larger than this that they believe they could deliver. So they're certainly on track at the moment. In terms of the CapEx spend for the year, it's above what the budget figure is.
Councillor Edwards.
Just returning to Councillor Mitchell's question, it does seem totally illogical that we would be paying for wastewater pipes that are in Upper Hutt. I mean, I understand the rationale of Upper Hutt having to, of course I would because I come from Hutt, but of them having to pay for pipes that are downstream because some of their material is moving through those pipes. I don't understand why we would be paying for wastewater assets in a city where none of our material flows through them. You just explained that there's an old piece of legislation or a Drainage Board Act. I mean, is that an anachronistic piece of legislation that we should be looking to try and change?
I don't disagree with your thinking, but it's part of the situation that we have inherited. We have a legal obligation. If we wanted to review that, I would imagine we'd need to seek some legal advice as to whether that was possible or not. That might all change soon in the near future anyway, Simon. We might become one city.
Councillor Dyer.
Yeah, just want to add on to the conversation that Upper Hutt City Council is also paying a third of Albertoni's collector wastewater sewer main, which is considerably more expensive than this little bit of pipe.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, be careful what you wish for. Yeah. Okay, no other questions? We'll move through to the recommendations, which are 1 through to 5 on page 513. I'll move it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morgan. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay, now we will move to exclusion questions. I've received no questions. Item 6. Now to exclusion of the public. And I'll move that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely Te Wai Takamori o Te Awa Karangi Riverlink program update. And I will move that. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Lewis. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. I declare that carried. I declare the public part of the meeting closed at 10:56 a.m.